Many of you believe that composting has a great impact on our environment, but some of you were confused on what that impact was. So today, I will be telling you why you should compost and what composting does for us as a whole. I myself have been composting for 3 years now, and I've done a lot of research on the effects of composting and what it will mean for us in our future. Composting is an important means of recycling. It impacts our economy, it impacts our community, and it impacts our environment. It should become a new mainstream way to properly dispose of organic matters in the environment. There are a lot of more environmental impacts than one person might think there are. According to Louisa Oliver, from an environmental point of view, the composting process is considered one of the most sustainable alternatives to manage and treat solid waste, organic waste. So why don't we? We toss out our food and we give it no second thought. We throw it in the trash and it goes to landfills. We really put out of sight, out of mind into proper action. What happens to our food is it just gets taken to a landfill and nothing decomposes and it just gets worse and worse and worse. She also states that composting provides the recycling of nutrients and consequent reuse of the organic waste fraction, thus reducing environmental pollution. This fancy way of saying it basically means the more we reduce and recycle the same nutrients, the more we reduce and recycle the same nutrients, the more we reduce and recycle the same nutrients in an environmentally friendly way, the better it is for our environment. I want you to imagine yourself in this scenario. You're walking down the street and it's hot. It's too hot. It's actually unbearably hot. And there's nothing we can do to change that because our gas emissions are so high up that it's irreversible damage and there's nothing we can do to change it. When we throw food into landfills, it produces a methane gas because they're not getting enough oxygen or too little oxygen to break down aerobically, and they break down anaerobically, which basically means they produce methane gas, hydrogen sulfide, and carbon dioxide into the air. None of the things you want. It keeps the temperature in the air, and while many of you might not believe this, according to an article, in Minnesota, in the dead of winter, our landfills are still over 70 degrees. In the middle of a Minnesotan winter. Think about that. That's a lot of snow. That's in the negatives. And our landfills feel like summer. Take a minute to think about how much methane gas that produces into our atmosphere and how much you're breathing that in. Kate Bailey, someone who works with the government to provide eco-friendly changes, states that methane is a powerful, short-lived climate pollutant. She also states that it's 84 times more impactful than carbon dioxide. So if you have 1 unit of carbon dioxide in your atmosphere, that's 84 units of methane gas. If you have 100 units of carbon dioxide, that's 840 units of methane gas. We can reduce this amount by composting. By composting or recycling, we drastically reduce the amount of pollution into our air. And to paraphrase Kate Bailey again, in 2019, we reduced and recycled and composted 94 million tons of trash of materials. And what this did for our air is saved 193 million metric tons of carbon dioxide. That's about the equivalent of taking 42 million cars off the road each year. The results This is just the result of our nation. Now imagine what we could do if we all composted. We live in a small town surrounded by slightly bigger and slightly smaller towns. If every town in Minnesota composted, we would get the same result, and that's just from Minnesota. Now imagine if our entire nation introduced composting as a new way of recycling, a more common way of recycling. James L. Simpson, an environmental activist, talks about this in his article, Food Waste in the City. In New York, they implemented programs, things such as drop-off composting and at-home, things such as drop-off composting. Basically, there are sites throughout the city that you can bring anything you want to, or any food scraps to. You can bring it once a week, you can bring it once a month, you can bring it every day for the rest of your life. It's an easy way to compost, and it provides minimal effort for us. Another thing you can do, or we can introduce into our society, are curbside composting. It's basically recycling, but for organic matter. So what happens is you'll get a bin at the end of your street that gets taken out weekly or bi-weekly, depending on your area, that's strictly for organic materials. What we can do with these materials is donate them to farms and gardens and anything we really want. It's a great way to reduce carbon emissions and help the community. This would also provide plenty of local jobs for many people and help our economy in that sense. Now, composting programs are great, but if you really want to do it well, at-home composting is your best option, especially if you care about the economy. Because while it would be great to produce this many jobs, composting would take a lot of money. According to the article Home Composting Infrastructure to the Organics says that every 10,000 households, we would save 1,400 to 5,000 tons of trash a year, which would save us a lot of money if we did it ourselves. It's also faster considering we don't have to set up any new composting facilities and we don't have to create any routes for the pickup. So what is our future with composting? If we keep this up, if we keep this up, we will get a cleaner and renewable air source. We will find a new way of thinking. We will have a new source of income. James also states that in New York City, it recently initiated an ambitious policy to convert collected food scraps into energy. And this program can be taken not just from New York City, but from any state. We can take all that composted waste and reuse it and make it into something that actually matters for the environment, like powering homes. It's our ticket to a cleaner, more reliable energy source instead of using fossil fuels. Finally, methane emissions out of composting helps the environment, community, climate, and provides jobs. Composting is now being recognized as a positive solution to environmental issues. Thank you for listening, Liz.